Hello again, welcome. My name is Catherine Stegeman. I'm a Senior Associate Dean of Admissions here at Bowdoin. I've been with the college for a long time, since 2011, and I've been in admissions for over 18 years. I am so happy to be with you tonight to talk about the college admissions process. I am also fortunate to have a colleague here with me. Kate is going to be manning the Q&A feature of this webinar. If you have questions as we go along, the Q&A will be a great place for you to drop them in. I will address some questions at the end of the presentation, but in the meantime, if you have questions or want some further clarification, you can drop your questions into the Q&A and Kate will try to answer as many as she can over the course of our time together. I do have a presentation for you. I will be walking through the college admissions process sort of writ large for you this evening. I may use Bowdoin as an example in talking about various aspects of the college application process, but really want this to be a little bit more broad so that you all have a good understanding of the application process, certainly here at Bowdoin, but maybe at other institutions too. So again, if you're just logging on, my name is Catherine Stegeman. I'm a Senior Associate Dean here, and we'll go ahead and get started. So what do we mean by application process? And this is a really good question because I think for a lot of juniors or younger students kind of looking ahead, it sort of feels like, well, I'm going to submit an application and then the college will say yes or no. And that is essentially what happens, but there are some other pieces and other steps to consider along the way. And so we're going to cover sort of soup to nuts, the application process, in this presentation. So what's the purpose of an application? Again, I know this seems maybe a little bit more basic, but it's a really good to sort of identify what is the student's job in the application and what's our job as an admissions office in the application. So the application, really at the end of the day, is sort of the story of who you are and what you have done. That's really the whole purpose is to sort of have a concise way for you to fill us in on your academic work, but also your personal achievements or where you're at in your life. Our job is to review that information and to better understand what your potential is for college level work at each of our institutions, but also to understand how might you fit into our community. What may stand out or what may be compelling to us about one application, may be very different than what is compelling in another student's story. And so, your job is not to tell us what you think we want to hear, but to sort of authentically and to authentically tell us your story. So we're going to go over sort of the pieces you can control in this process and what we're looking at in each part of the application. A lot of small liberal arts colleges and some larger universities utilize what we consider a holistic review process. This means that we consider every aspect of your application in order to determine your fit for each of our institutions. So you can sort of see this very basic diagram here where we have this sort of academic information, where we have personal information, and we have what's called fit. And I'll explain each of these parts in more detail as we go. But that where those three circles overlap, that's what we're looking for, right? Where all three of those pieces really come together. And this diagram will look different at every institution, every different college or university that you're looking at. So as you can see, it would be really hard to tailor really any one part of your application to one single school, right? Or to all of us really all at once, because this diagram looks different for everybody. So the best thing you can do is to present yourself authentically, to sort of find that overlap in those circles in the institution that you're applying to. Application platforms. So there are three sort of main applications out there. I would say main, I don't mean the state, I mean primary applications. So we have the Common App, we have the Coalition for college application, and we have the QuestBridge application. On top of that, some colleges and universities will use their own application for admission. So it's important to sort of understand that at the end of the day, each of these institutions are basically asking for the same information, right? They're looking for your sort of biographical information. When were you born? What's your preferred name? Where they're all asking about your academic background. All of these applications and others will ask for a writing sample. Sometimes that's a writing sample that you create specifically for that institution, and sometimes it might be a graded paper. We're looking at extracurricular and co-curricular opportunities. So what do you do when you're not in class? All of these applications will ask for letters of recommendation. There's variations on these letters, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. And then some applications also have an opportunity for colleges to ask some additional information of applicants. We call those supplemental or optional materials. And again, we'll get into kind of all of these pieces. So each of the application platforms that are out there are basically asking for the same information, just in different ways. They order it differently. It looks a little bit different on our end, but we don't have a preference. Here at Bowdoin, there's no preference between which application you use. It really is whatever works best for you and the process that you're embarking on. So it could be that the Coalition is the right application for you because the state university in your state happens to use the Coalition also. It just makes good sense to be efficient about the work you're doing. So totally fine to submit the Coalition, for example, to Bowdoin. So it's good to, as you're starting to search colleges and understand what their requirements might be for their applications, to ask what applications they accept. That would be easily findable on a website also, but it's just good to know. So all of these pieces that these applications are asking for, I'm going to overlay them over that Venn diagram that we just saw. So where do all those pieces kind of fit into to this graphic? So you can see for academic information, we're going to rely on what's called a school report. We're going to look at your transcript. We're going to consider testing, your written work, and then your letters. So the academic evaluation, we'll look at all of those things. For the personal side, we're going to look at your personal information, your writing samples, your school and community involvement, and your letters. And you'll notice there is overlap between these two circles on your writing and your teacher recommendations. So we'll talk about that more. And then this third bubble, sort of, how do we take all of this information, the academic information and the personal information, and how do we then sort of understand your fit within our campus community academically and personally, but also how do we understand how we can help you as an institution? So it's not always what can the student do for us, but how could we impact this student's life? So let's dive a little bit more into this process. This diagram is great, but what's really important is context. And context is really the background, the framework under which all of your application materials come together. Context means, uh, you know, what is your personal background? What's your lived experience? And we try to understand that through your school profile, for example. What have you had access to academically? What have you chosen to take of what's available to you academically? We're understanding grading and where other kids from your school might have enrolled, so that we really understand the full picture. I think there's this sort of myth or idea out there that we sort of line up applications from various schools against each other. We sort of sort of pit you all against each other, where a student who's had access to 30 AP classes, for example, at their high school, would be pitted against a student who only has access to maybe 4 AP classes at their high school. I'm using AP as a sort of a stand-in here for rigorous level classes. And the truth is, we're not comparing you to each other, right? We're not comparing those two students to each other. We're comparing one student who has access to 30 APs against what their high school offers. So of what's available to them, what have they taken? And we're looking at the other student who's maybe had access to 4 really rigorous classes against that context. And then we're sort of taking that and saying, how does that fit in at Bowdoin? So again, this is not a sort of one student versus another analysis. This is, what do we know about the student's academic resources and trajectory? And what does that then tell us about what we're looking at when we see the transcript? So that's really important to know when we kind of get into the different pieces of the academic review. So the academic review, because we're contextual in how we look at your academic work, the school report, the information we get from your schools is really helpful to us in understanding what is your high school like? What's been complicated by the pandemic? What it used to be offered is that's no longer offered. Maybe you're at a rural school where it's just not possible for your school to offer the most rigorous classes every year, just because you don't necessarily have the enrollment in your school to sustain that kind of academic work. So we're going to really work hard to understand your school context. Oftentimes when you're visiting admission offices, admissions folks will introduce ourselves and then immediately tell you the territories that we work in. If you're curious, I cover York and Cumberland counties here in Maine. I cover a slice of Massachusetts, and I also cover the Bay Area of California. And the reason we do that is because those are the areas that I travel to. In recruitment travel, I go to college fairs, I visit high schools, I visit community-based organizations. I might do interviews when I travel to those territories, so that I can start to get to know and try to gather as much information as I can about the context that you're coming from. So admissions offices tend to work regionally, not always, but in many cases, so that we become familiar with high schools. And because Bowdoin is a college that attracts applications from every state, many, many countries, it's great to have folks who sort of understand different areas of the country or the world. So that school context is really important. We're going to look at your transcript, and we're going to try to understand what have you had access to at your high school versus what you've taken. Again, if you're looking at schools like Bowdoin, we're looking to see that you've taken a rigorous course load in high school, that you've found your way into some level of challenging work that will best prepare you for the level of rigor and academic expectation that you would find at Bowdoin or at other schools like Bowdoin. We are not expecting that you've taken every accelerated honors, advanced, AP, IB, advanced topics, whatever your high school calls them. We're not expecting that you've taken all of those classes. Rather, we want to see that you've taken classes that have pushed you academically, that maybe have stretched you, that maybe have been a little bit uncomfortable because you've had to work hard in them, because that's the kind of academic challenge that you're going to face at a college like Bowdoin, where the class size here averages 16. So it's not a classroom environment in which you can hide. Now, that being said, it's very supportive. And we want to make sure you're prepared for the level of academic rigor that you'll face here. So we really spend a lot of time with your transcript to understand your curriculum, to understand the rigor, if your high school offers rigorous leveled classes, and try to understand your grades within the context of your high school, or your whatever evaluation system your high school uses. We also, the applications also give the counselor an opportunity to write on your behalf. Sometimes at really large high schools, the counselors just don't know you that well. It's just not possible for them to know you on a personal level. That's okay. We get that. They'll still provide us some really important information, context on your high school that can help us sort of understand where you fit in. So if you find yourself at a very large high school, or at another school where the counselor just isn't able to create sort of a one-on-one relationship with you, that's okay. We definitely know that happens. One of the other pieces that we look at would be your academic interests. Sometimes we see that through the transcript by the classes you've chosen to take. You might be really into math and have taken on rigorous, classes in math because you find math really exciting and challenging and you enjoy that. So sometimes we sort of glean that from your transcript. Other times we're looking to the application to kind of see, what are you thinking about at this point in your life? Now, for many liberal arts colleges, you're not going to be applying to that major specifically. You're going to be applying to the college as a whole. And then at Bowdoin, for example, you wouldn't declare a major until your sophomore year. So while this information can be, helpful in some cases, we're not admitting kids to a specific major. That might be different at larger universities, where they might have enrollment caps on specific majors. So it's good to ask those questions as you're doing your college research. But at a small liberal arts college, we're admitting students to the college, and then you're finding your way into various majors or minors. After you've had some time to acclimate to the college, you've had more exposure to the curriculum, at our institutions and so forth. So again, it can be helpful information for us, but it's not, we're not like sort of checking boxes for each major. We might understand your academic interests through any projects you've done through school or classes or research. If you're in AP research and seminar, you might have pursued something that's interesting to you there. So we would note that. Standardized testing has an asterisk on it. And the reason that it does is here at Bowdoin, we've been test optional since 1969. So while you're welcome to submit your standardized test score to us, you are not required to do so. One of the other reasons I put an asterisk on here is that there's been sort of a string of announcements from other colleges and universities that have changed their testing requirements in recent weeks. So it's really good to sort of do your research on the schools that you're applying to, on what they might require or not for standardized testing. Standardized testing is optional at Bowdoin. It's something that a student can submit, but they don't have to submit to us. If it is submitted, we will evaluate it, again, within the academic context of that student. We're not going to compare the testing submitted to our average testing. We're going to look at that testing, again, within the environment that the student is coming from. This is a really good conversation to have with your school counselor if you have access to a school counselor about what makes sense for you to submit. This is really personalized to you and your process. Um, it's not a question that I can answer. Say, if you see me at a college fair and you come up to me and say, Catherine, here's my test score, should I submit it? I'm not going to be able to answer that question for you. And the reason for that is I don't have all your other pieces of your application in front of me. So it's a personal decision that you make. If you think your testing represents you as a student, your academic strengths, go ahead and submit it. If you don't submit your testing to us or other institutions who are test optional, we're not going to sit around and guess how bad your test was that you didn't submit it, right? If we don't have your test, it's not there. We can't guess at what it was. We're not going to assume it went poorly. Um, and so it really, again, is a personal choice and is a really good question to be asking your school counselor, again, if you have access to one. Writing mechanics. Writing appears in so many places in the application, and I think people automatically go to the college essay as sort of the main thing to focus on in writing in the application. And yes, that is sort of the longest writing sample that we might get from you. And yes, I think there is a lot of I think students feel a lot of pressure in the process to like get that part right. And there's also writing in the extracurricular section. There's writing in the additional information section. There's different places where writing actually bubbles up. And so would encourage you as you're going through the various applications, whatever platform you use, to continually double check your work, to not wait until the last minute to submit your application so that you have time to check over all those sections where writing appears. The challenging part, I think, about writing mechanics in the application is there's word limits, character limits on a lot of these sections. So again, it's not going to be something that you can just sort of whip off at the last second. It's going to take some time to present your story the way that you really want it told. So there's my plug to start early on filling out all the various sections of the applications. We do look for grammar, we do look for sentence structures, we do look for vocabulary, we look for where are you at in your writing journey. Put down the thesaurus, write your own work. It's okay to have someone proofread. It's not okay to have someone write it for you. So this is a really a glimpse that we get into your writing journey. Where are you at in developing your writing, your writer's voice? And again, looking for correct punctuation, grammar in those other sections of the application as well. And finally, letters of recommendation. So as we start to think about your academic skills as viewed from sort of this objective third party, if you will, we're really trying to understand what are you like as a student, right? We've seen your transcript and your grades, your curriculum choices. We sort of understand where your academic areas of interest might be. Maybe we have your testing, maybe we don't. Either way, that's fine. We've read your writing in all parts of the application, and then we get to the letters. And the letters really help us understand you as a student. They give us a narrative of you in the classroom. And that's really helpful for small liberal arts colleges who, we pride ourselves on our small classes here, right? So we really want to understand what sort of presence you hold in a classroom space. There are other letters of recommendation that can be submitted to. We'll talk about those in the personal section. But just so you know here, it's important to choose a teacher who knows you as a student. That may not be the class you did the best in. That may not be the class of the academic area that you're hoping to pursue in college. What we're looking for is a teacher who knows your strength as a student, but also your growth, how you handle setbacks. Maybe this class wasn't the easiest, but you really worked hard and you developed strategies and you actually really came to love the class because you had to work hard at it, right? So I think there's a lot of strategy out there in the college advice world about who should be writing your letters of recommendation. And you should be well-rounded if you're a science student by having your English teachers write your recommendation. And honestly, what we're looking for is just who knows you best as a student. So try not to get caught up in the swirl of um, the strategy around who should write your letters. Choose the teacher who can speak to you as a student the best. So personal review. I'm just going to have a sip of tea. Hold on. So now we're into this sort of second circle of the Venn diagram of the personal review. We've been through the academic review in terms of who you are as a student. Now we want to understand of who you are as a person. Bowdoin College, other small liberal arts colleges are residential communities. This is a place where you are coming to live really for 4 years. You're going to be living in residence halls, you're going to be eating in dining halls, you're going to be in community here. And so we want to understand where and how you might fit into that. So we are looking at your sort of personal and family information to sort of better understand, again, what context are you coming from? We're trying to understand your extracurricular and co-curricular activities that you've done. And I list co-curricular here just because some students have chosen to travel abroad, for example, in high school, or maybe they've done research with a local land use nonprofit or something like that. So extracurriculars to me would be things that you do in school. They would be clubs and activities, sports, theater, music, anything that you do, through your school that you've signed up for at your school. And co-curricular might be a more academic thing that you're involved in. But either way, we're looking to whatever application platform you use to better understand how you spend your time when you're not being a student in the classroom. So again, there is no right or wrong mix here. I think there's always a lot of advice or speculation about you need to do this to get into a colleges, and colleges want to see this, and colleges want to see that. What we want to see is that you're engaged in your high school or community in some way. That's going to look different for every single student. That might be some students who really love music and they're really into their trumpet, and all they want to play is trumpet, and so they play in the jazz ensemble, and they're in the orchestra, and they might play in a regional youth orchestra, and they might do some chamber work, or they might play at a nursing home, or whatever it is, right? They're sort of finding different ways to share their talent with others. For other students, it might be they tried trumpet, but they also tried theater. Oh, they did 1 year in the chess team because that seemed really cool to try, or they're trying different things. And I think this is where we recognize that you're humans. You may not have found your passion, and that's okay. You're allowed to try things in high school. You should try things in high school. You never know what you're going to like until you get out there. So every student's journey through this is really different. And one way isn't better than another. It's just your journey, right? So other students have had to work. Other students might have part-time jobs. They might care for younger siblings. They might be responsible for driving their siblings, to different places. They might do service. They might be really committed to their church or their religious faith. And so, it's really important to us that you outline all of that. And fill us in on how you're spending your time. Again, the writing samples kind of give us a little bit of insight into who you are and what you value. In this way, it's really important that you write your personal statement, because it's you that we're admitting to the college, right? Like, we want to find the right fit for us, but we also want it to be the right fit for you. we don't want to bring a student to Bowdoin, for example, who wouldn't thrive in our community. And so, being not trying to be someone you're not in the essay, um, you're going to find the right school if you're true to yourself, you're true to your values, you're true to your voice. And instead of trying to tell us something that you think we want to hear. And then again, your letters. So at Bowdoin, for example, we require one teacher recommendation, and the second letter of recommendation can be from another teacher. It could be from a club advisor. It could be from a coach. It could be from a neighbor, anybody who knows you well, right? So again, we're trying to understand how you might contribute or be a part of the community here. How are you going to be in the dorms? What is it going to be like to hang out with you on the quad? So choose somebody who, again, knows you well, can speak to who you are as a person. Finally, we're at sort of this very ambiguous part of the Venn diagram that is fit. And this is where college admissions gets really impossible for people to predict. This is what sort of makes you kind of sometimes scratch your head about decisions that we're making. Fit is sort of this question of how will this student contribute to our campus? What will they be like in the classroom? What might they sort of delve into here as a scholar? And then where might they sort of plug themselves into campus life, right? Are they going to run for student government when they get here as a first-year student? Are they going to plug into the newspaper? Maybe they're going to be part of the debate society. So really try to understand where a student might fit into our campus is really important. We also want to know or sort of conjecture on how our institutions might benefit a student. This is important to us also because, the relationship you have with your college or university is really reciprocal. You're going to come and learn a lot, and the institution is going to learn a lot from you. So really trying to understand where a student might fit in to those pieces is why we employ holistic review and why we try to build a community here that is, specific to Bowdoin and why other colleges do the same thing for their own communities, a sense of identity and a sense of who they want as part of their campus culture. So this is the part where, again, there's no, as you can see, it's like two questions. I don't have bullet points for you. I don't have strategies or things. This sort of really comes from the application as a whole and why we call it holistic admission. So I want to just delve a little bit more into writing samples because I think this is a part of the application that starts to get people sort of anxious or nervous. The personal statement, no matter what application platform you use, will offer you prompts. And you can look up those prompts right now to see what they were this year. All of the application platforms will update them if they change, but it's something that students can start working on relatively soon, if they wanted to. They don't have to. I know that, some students wait to start to the summer, some might wait to the fall to start their personal statement, and that's fine. There's a lot of growth that happens for 17-year-olds between now and the fall of the senior year. So even if you started to work on your personal statement now or felt drawn to a prompt to start working on, that might change and adapt, and it's okay to let your writing change and adapt with you. So really what we're looking for is to get to know you. We want to sort of be let into your world, so to speak. We want to see that your writing is your best effort. It should be polished. It should be proofread. And it will probably mean working through some drafts to get to the piece that you're really proud to submit. We're looking for, as I mentioned earlier, both the mechanics of your writing, but also your ideas. And sometimes the writing skills aren't, quite there, but the ideas behind them are maybe really profound or interesting or well developed. So we're looking at really all facets of your writing to understand you, what you value, your place in the world. Again, we know you're a human, you're not perfect. So and there's no one topic that we really want you to write on. We want you to choose a prompt and a writing piece that again tells your story the way you want it told. Supplemental essays, I mentioned this earlier, so some colleges give you additional opportunities to submit more writing. And that can be for both our understanding of you as a student, but it can also be a way for you to specifically address why it is you're interested in our college. So supplemental essays or additional application questions can be there can be many of them. And it's good, again, to understand what you're getting into with each of the colleges or universities that you're looking for. So, if you happen to be a humanities person, you love to write, you love English, you've really delved into maybe writing your own short stories or poetry or something like that, maybe the supplemental writing option is a good option for you if you feel like writing is a strength. They're optional, and so you don't have to do them. But they exist and they're there. You should know that it's an opportunity for you to submit more writing if you would like. Letters of recommendation. This is the other piece where, again, I think there's sort of some strategy that gets talked about. Your counselor letter, we really consider to sort of, if your counselor is able to write one, and again, we know that some counselors are just not able to get to know students well enough to write on their behalf. But we sort of consider it, if it's there, sort of the floodlight in this process where they sort of put the floodlight on all of your academic information for us, and they really sort of highlight the big picture. The teacher recommendation or teacher recommendations are really the spotlight, and they're really spotlighting you within an academic context. So they're spotlighting you within the math classroom, for example, or the humanities or the art classroom. I think the important thing to note here is that the more recent your experience with that teacher, the better. So junior year teachers often get asked a lot. I think that's for good reason. They know you because they spent a whole year with you, but you're not so far removed from them as a senior in high school that they've forgotten you and your work. So we ask that, most of us ask that teacher recommendations are from junior or senior year. As a courtesy to your teachers who work really hard, give them time before deadlines. When you ask them to write a recommendation, make sure you're giving them enough time to do that in advance of application deadlines. And we'll get into application deadlines in a minute, but be organized about it. And that will help them, write the best letter for you possible. And some teachers will ask for a resume or a list of activities or other things that you do. They may just really understand you as a chemist and may not know that you also star in your school's improv team, right? So helping them understand where your high school experience can be helpful too. Not all teachers ask for that, but it's good to be prepared if they do. Additional recommenders, we've talked a little bit about this already. The other recommendation can be from a coach, it can be from a club advisor, it can be from a spiritual person in your life, it can be from a neighbor, someone who knows you well and can speak to who you are in a community of people. Optional materials. So up until this point, we've been talking about required elements of each application. And like I said, some colleges give you the opportunity to submit some additional information. Again, I threw test scores up here. At Bowdoin, they're optional. They may not be optional at an institution you might be considering applying to. So it's really good to do that research and know, again, what the requirements are at each college and university that you're applying to. Writing supplements, again, optional, and something to take some time with. If you choose to do it, we will evaluate it. Kind of like your testing. If you submit your testing, we're going to evaluate it. Same with the writing supplements. Take your time with those. Really understand what they're asking. It can be very clear when a student has written a very generic statement to try to satisfy many different optional material writing samples. So it's good to make those specific to the institution that you're applying to. I know senior year is busy. I know you're still committed to doing your best in school and you're committed to your extracurricular activities. And to write something that is personal or specific about that institution can help us see, again, that sort of fit piece. Again, it's optional. It's not required. If we needed it to make a decision on your application, we'd make it required. But if you're going to choose to do it, if you're going to opt in, do it to the best of your ability. In interview, some colleges offer the opportunity to interview. Every college is a little bit different on the timing of the interview. At Bowdoin, for example, we do not require, first of all, we don't require an interview. It is optional. But we don't require that you submit an application before you interview. That is not the case everywhere. At other places who offer interviews, you have to submit the application first, and then you do the interview. Every year in January, I get emails from students saying, oh my gosh, I missed the interview deadline. I really wanted to do that. And unfortunately, at that point, our hands are tied. Our process has sort of moved on. So it's good, again, do the research, ask the questions. If an interview is offered and you want to take part, understand the timing before you just sort of assume it's one way or another. An art supplement, so it could be that you could submit artistic materials to be evaluated by faculty within the arts, fine or performing arts. Again, not required. At many small liberal arts schools, often not an audition, right? But just a different way for us to understand what talent or accomplishment you might have in a very specific area, again, with fine or performing arts. So the art supplement, again, at Bowdoin anyway, each arts department gets to determine what it is that they want submitted. So it might be a portfolio, it might be a recording. Sounding like a broken record, but do your research to understand, again, within the context of an art supplement, what might be, what each department is looking for in terms of a submission as part of that supplement. For international applicants, know that international means something a little bit different. It sounds a little bit odd, but it means a little bit different to various schools. So you might be considered international if you live abroad, even if you're a US passport holder. So it's good to understand how each college might define an international student. Plan ahead for proficiency requirements. Some colleges have them, some don't. Some say, here are some English language proficiency tests you can take, again, sort of in that test optional vein. Again, a lot of this is like double checking that your transcripts are sent and all of the requirements are met for what we're looking for. That might be leaving exams, school documentation, etc. And then finally, make sure that financial aid policies align with what you might need as an international applicant. Here at Bowdoin, we're need blind for all international students, which means that a student's ability to pay tuition would never prevent them from being admitted to Bowdoin. So that's not the case everywhere. So again, double check to make sure you're able to align with a college or university that fits what you're looking for in terms of financial aid. Various application rounds. This is where we really sort of round out this whole process thing, right? So there's early decision, there's early action, there's regular decision, and there's rolling admission. All of these mean a little bit different things. So early decision, or what we call ED, is what we consider a binding application round. If we admit you, we do expect that you'll attend our institution. And the deadlines really vary across different colleges and universities. Some are as early as October, some stretch into January if you're getting into an early decision 2 round. So some colleges offer both. Bowdoin offers ED1 and ED2. Our deadlines happen to be November 15th and January 5th for our early decision rounds. Basically, it's a way of saying to the college, you're my first choice. And I know without any doubt that this is where I want to be, and I'm committing to you if you'll commit to me. So that's what early decision means. Early action, non-binding, just is sort of like a priority application time that you can submit an application by. You'll hear back earlier than you would if you applied regular. Again, it's a way to express interest in a particular institution. Regular decision, this is where we're getting the most number of applications from. So again, regular decision deadlines really vary from January 1st through the 15th, generally speaking. And then rolling admission basically means that the college or university is just continuously evaluating any application that gets submitted to see if the student is admissible, and releasing that decision a couple of weeks later. So colleges and universities in the US employ all of these different enrollment processes. So it's good to do your research and understand what varying application rounds exist at the colleges and universities that you're interested in. A note here to make sure that you're meeting the deadlines for student aid or financial aid. Some colleges are very, very strict about your student aid application and deadlines. So please read the websites of student aid to make sure that your application will be considered, and that you have all your financial aid documents in. Again, as we continue through the process, what are the various outcomes that can happen? Students can be admitted. So, right, we get through this whole evaluation process, the academic, the personal, the fit, and we land at decisions. And students can be admitted, they can be deferred, they can be waitlisted, denied. Some students might choose to take a gap year or defer their admission, and some students may end up choosing to go down the transfer route after maybe spending time at another college or university. So this is certainly not an exhaustive list, but these are sort of the main decision outcomes that can happen from a process. If a student is deferred, what that means is they've been deferred from an early round, early decision or early action, into the regular decision pool. This happens for many, many reasons. And, sort of one reason would be the college or university wants to see more work from the senior year. With early decision, we're only seeing a quarter or a progress report's worth of grades from the senior year. And sometimes you all are enrolling in your most ambitious or most rigorous course load in your senior year. You've sort of built up to it. We might want to see more grades from that step up in rigor from your senior year. So we might defer you until later in the academic year when we can see more of your grades, right? So being deferred is not a no, it's just you're moving into the regular decision pool. We want to consider you again later. Being waitlisted would happen from the regular decision pool. So let's say we go through all of the regular decision applicants, and we just have, more students who are capable and compelling, who are the right fit, than we can possibly admit at our schools. Our schools tend to be small. Bowdoin is looking for a class of 500 students only. So We only have so many spots that we can offer up front. We know, because if you're looking at schools like Bowdoin, you're looking at fabulous colleges and universities, and that our applicants who are admitted have options to choose from. And so it's not, it's not always that they choose to enroll at Bowdoin, which means that frees up a spot for somebody off the wait list. Again, being waitlisted is not an indication of your ability to be successful at Bowdoin. Or at other schools, it's really just, you know, um, we, we we hope that we have space for you later, because we don't know how many students are going to choose Bowdoin out of the admit group. Some students might choose to take a gap year, and this could be they get admitted to a college and they choose to defer their admission for another year because they want to go work, or they want to embark on something that they've been planning for a long time. So that's an option after you are admitted to a college. You can look into taking a gap year or deferring for a year. And then the transfer process, and we don't really have time in this webinar to go through the transfer process, but this is still an option. This is part of the application process, right? Where we have students coming to us who say, actually, I thought I wanted a huge university in a big city, but kind of drawn to Bowdoin, right? So that's still part of our process, our application process writ large. I've been talking for a really long time. I'm sure you're tired of hearing my voice. But I wanted to just see if there were any questions. I can stop sharing my screen. And we can just see. Yeah, these are some really good questions in the Q&A. I know Kate has been diligent about trying to get to as many as possible. And sort of more questions about sort of school context and understanding what we know about schools. We do not necessarily always have a school profile from a college. It could be that, a profile from a high school. It could be that the high school doesn't have a profile. It could be just that it didn't happen to get sent. So we do our best. We might Google a high school. We might reach out to the school counselor if there are questions that we have about what a student has taken or not taken. So I'm seeing another question here, questions about demonstrated interest. Now, this is sort of another term that gets used in the admissions process world. Demonstrated interest means that a college or university might track your interaction with that college or university. And by track, I just mean note if they met you at a college fair or at a high school visit, or you've done an interview. And so demonstrated interest can be a way for a college to see how much you've engaged with them. I think this has gotten a lot of interest because, sometimes students might try to just open all their emails to show that they're interested in us, or I'm going to do all the things possible to show that I'm really interested in you. And really, what I think is important is that you understand the colleges and universities that you're applying to. That's going to mean doing some research on the website. That might mean talking to us at a college fair, or if we happen to come to your high school, right? Those are important things for you to do so that you understand where you're applying to and if it's a good fit for you. For a lot of colleges, the interview or optional materials are really optional because not everyone can interview. It's not possible. Not everyone's an artist to submit an art supplement. So it's a little bit trickier, I think, to sort of just say you should do everything with every college possible, because we know it's not possible, right? Like, we know we don't travel to North Dakota. No offense, North Dakota, if you're on here, hi. We just can't get to every single high school, right? So it would feel really unfair, or would be really unfair if we were holding you to some standard of like coming to a high school visit when we don't visit every high school, right? So I just wanted to sort of address that a little bit. And some questions here about maybe early decision. These are questions I get quite often. The percentage of the class that comes in through early decision. This is going to differ at every college and university. Some colleges and universities are very upfront that if you want to be admitted or you want to profess your undying love, you have to apply early. At Bowdoin, we know that some kids find us really late in the process. We know that families are really concerned about student aid packages and need to apply to a variety of colleges in order to make it work for the family financially. So, if for Bowdoin, if you know that Bowdoin is your first choice and you've done the student aid calculators on our student aid website and you've talked to your family and you've talked to your school counselor and this is it for you, go ahead and apply early, right? But it's not the only way to be admitted to Bowdoin. Uh, Typically, on average, about half of our class comes in through early. And it varies every year. It depends on the early decision pool and so forth. So, it really just depends on the year. It depends on the college. So I just wanted to address that. And let's see. So maybe this is a good question to kind of end on. I know we're coming up on 9 o'clock, so thank you all for hanging with me. It's awesome to see so many of you still tuned in. The question was really, sort of, can I speak specifically to what Bowdoin is looking for? Like, what's the fit piece for Bowdoin? First and foremost, we're looking for students who love their academic work. This is a really sort of scholarly place. Students here love to learn. They're really committed to their academic growth. Again, that doesn't mean that we're taking students who have taken every single AP or they're valedictorian. I think academic growth and scholarship take a lot of different forms. But essentially this is a small academic institution. We want students who want to come here to learn in small classes, learn from their professors, and learn from each other. We want students to do that in a non-competitive atmosphere. So we look for students who are collaborative, who enjoy learning from others, who want to work together to solve really big problems that are facing us all really in the world. And so as our former president here at the college used to say, no one person is going to solve climate change. It's going to take scientists and lobbyists and government officials, and it's going to take innovators and artists to change hearts and minds. And so we're looking for students who want to work across disciplines and want to work across values and ideas and perspectives in a small classroom setting. This is also we're in a small town on the coast of Maine. This is a neighborly place. We look out for each other, we take care of each other, and we want to bring students to this campus who are excited by that idea and who want to enter into a small community and, knowing, they may not be in a small community ever again in their lives, right? They might return to the city, right? Return to a big city or a bigger community. But while they're here, they're part of not just Bowdoin, but Brunswick and coastal Maine and really the whole state. And so, for lack of a better term, we want neighborly students who want to come here and wave to the car in the crosswalk that stops for them and hold the door for the person behind them and check in on their friends and form connections with others. So, for me, those are the things that we're kind of keeping an eye out for. Again, there's no one way that all of that is expressed. It all comes into us in very different formats. It comes to us from the student who loves to do service work and be a part of really helping communities and people out in their community. And it comes to us from students who love to work with kids. It comes to us with kids who coach youth sports. There's no one way that no one activity or no one academic class that every Bowdoin student has, but I think there is this shared sense of purpose to what we do. So I hope that was helpful. That was a lot of information. This was recorded, so if you attended or logged in late or missed pieces, it will be sent out to you. But thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for logging in. Again, I hope it answered some questions about the process. Please reach out to me or to any of us here at Bowdoin if you have other questions. But thank you for your questions and for your attention and your time. And I just wish you all the best of luck with your process. So take care, be well, bye.